All right, today, time for another Bearded Wonder video. I'm sure that you've been missing these, and so we have a fresh batch coming at you between now and Christmas. Happy holidays to all of you. It is good to be back. So, today we're going to talk about land and taxes in colonial America. Uh, we really want to try to explain or understand why land is such a big deal to the colonists. And that answer actually comes to us from England, which is where most of our colonists come from. You see here on our map that we have England, Wales, and Scotland. These are the three countries that make up the British Isle or the British Isles. And if we include Ireland there to the west, that's kind of the entire Great British area, including Northern Ireland. Ireland itself is a different country. But in any case, in England, the way that it worked in the 1600s, at the beginning of the 1600s, was that you had a lord, and he owned a manor home, and he had a bunch of land around that home. And there were a bunch of peasants who also lived on that land, and they would use that land for things like their livestock. They would also use it to grow food. Yeah, that's not quite historically accurate. I don't think they grew pineapples in England, but in any case, they would use that land. It was open to them to be used in common by anybody who needed it. And so pretty much everybody had the land that they needed to survive. And then all of a sudden we had a movement that we called enclosure. Enclosure meant that the Lord would kind of build fences around his property, and all of a sudden everything that happens inside of that fence belongs to him, which means that all of the economic opportunities, all of the chances to have your animals graze and other things like that are severely limited. And so basically what this does is it creates a huge land shortage. There's a lot of poor people. They move to the cities. Can't really get access to future economic activities. And so they're kind of stuck in England wondering what they're going to do next. And that is a very fortunate time in history in the 1600s, because it just so happened that there was an opportunity to move. And so a lot of people from England and Scotland and Wales, where there was not a lot of land, hopped into boats and came to America. And when they get to America, they figure out that there's all kinds of land. Now, technically speaking, there were people that were already using the land, but since they're not Europeans, we're not that concerned about them. And so the Europeans had kind of claimed all of this land. You can see the dark red here. Before the 7 Years' War in Europe, we call it the French and Indian War here in America, belonged to the British colonies. And that was more than enough for the numbers of people that were coming. The French had kind of that light pink and that yellow kind of shape. And then we get the French and Indian War between France and the British, and the British win. And take over all of that pink land. That pink land is given up to the British by the French. And so the colonists are like wicked excited. In 1762, they're like, OMG, look at all of that land. And this is ultimately seen by the British colonists as their potential for economic improvement. They start buying land. George Washington actually made a lot of money at this time speculating land. And really, if you're kind of getting towards the peasant side in the colonies, let's say you have 3 kids, and so you had 100 acres, but now all of your kids only get 30 acres, and then your kids have 3 kids, which is a pretty low number for the colonists. We should probably going more like 5. Pretty soon you're going to run out of land. You're not going to have enough for a farm. But if you can always move west, it's not easy, but if you can always move west, then you can get more land and you can continue to live at the same level standard of living that you had before. Problem is that the British basically say, yeah, you see, the problem with that land is that You know, those people that we kicked out of the land that's dark red, you know, the Indians, they don't really want us to move there. And to be honest with you, it's not really worth our time sending military troops over there and supporting them just to make sure that you can get your land. So they kind of move west, and but basically they're prevented from doing so. The proclamation line of 1763 basically says, yeah, even though we own the land, you can't actually go and get it. Colonists are pretty ticked about this, but the British king doesn't care. And then, you know, we have a couple of other things. The British decided to go on a fundraising campaign, mainly because they spent a lot of money sending troops over to fight the French in America, and they figured that maybe the Americans wouldn't mind chipping in a little bit to help with that. And it doesn't go so well. We have the Stamp Act, and we're going to talk a lot more about these later in the year, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them here. But you have the Stamp Act, you have the Tea Act, you have, you know, the pretty much all kinds of acts that are just taxes to help pay for all of these things. This eventually leads to the Boston Tea Party, which was not actually a tea party. It was more of a riot, or you might call it, you know, property destruction, depending on whose boat it was. But in any case, the colonists jump on the boat. They throw everything off the boat. The British don't really take too kindly to that. And so they shut down all of Boston Harbor and basically say, you know what, you can't trade anymore. So they send ships in, and basically nothing comes in, nothing goes out of Boston, which kind of shuts down all of their economic activity. This scares everybody else in all the other colonies, because they're like, wait a second, if they can do that to Boston, then they might do that to us too. And so here in the state of South Carolina, for example, you have Christopher Gadsden creating the Sons of Liberty and other groups like that. You also have the Sons of Liberty in other cities, including Boston, like Samuel Adams. And pretty much this is leading to a situation where eventually it breaks out in war, mainly because the colonists would love to be able to control their own taxes. Now, of course, that's not the only thing. There's also ideas about rights and what it means to be a British citizen and all of these kind of ideas. But since we're covering this unit strictly from an economic perspective, that's the economic part of it. All right, that's it for our video today. I hope you guys have a good day.